Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Brightec Exchange live. It's a Tuesday lunchtime, and we're here with David Ramirez. It's great to have you here, David. You all right?
Yes, thanks for having me, Simon.
We have got a conversation ahead around emotional resilience. We had an event recently where we had most of our clients all together in one room, and we did a leadership panel, lots of different questions about life, leadership, and legacy. And David, you introduced this just concept around emotional exposure and emotional just resilience as a leader, which I know there's lots of questions on the back of it that we didn't have time to fully answer. I thought, oh, we must get a live lunch call. So we thought, let's take some time, let's pick up the conversation. I know there are people just watching this live right now and some people watching this on replay. If you are here live, do say a quick hello in the chat. And throughout this conversation, please, any questions that come up, do post them into the chat and we'll have some time at the end to answer them. Any particularly tricky ones for you, David, I think would be nice. If we can make you cry, just to sort of demonstrate the... No, joking. Actually, before we start, Dave, just tell those who don't know you, just a bit about yourself and just what you do, and that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So David Ramirez, co-founder and CEO of Venture Blue Group, and we have a number of different companies in the group. Primarily two main businesses. One is e-commerce, so we have an e-commerce trading business which is 19 years old next year. Relatively kind of self-sufficient. I really see it as I sit on a board seat in that business. And then we have another business which is Wonderpack Eco, which is a third-party logistics business for e-commerce brands, built around thoughtful fulfillment and sustainability. And then on that side of the business, it's about 3.5 years old, but we're going through quite a lot of growth at the moment. So we're just under around 100 members of staff, 3 sites across the UK. So yeah, that's it. That's a quick snapshot.
It's been a wild 3 years, isn't it? As things been growing and expanding. Well, listen,
Yes.
why don't we start with this? You explained it in such a fresh kind of way, even Victoria, I've never even thought of it before. Just tell us, those who didn't hear that at the time, what you take your new staff through, and just the way you framed that emotional just picture. Go for it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I normally have a nice whiteboard here, so you'll have to just bear with me. For me, the movements of business are like this. They're unpredictable, they're up and down. You never really know what's coming. And the tough thing is that the higher up you go and the more you're exposed to of those, you need to sit really in a very, very stable line across the middle. So when something terrible happens, you're not throwing stuff around the office, reacting. And equally, when something's good happening, you have to kind of take it in your stride. The flip side of that is understanding in your team how much you can expose people to within that barometer. So we have a lot of warehouse staff. There's no benefit to us exposing to them on the day really, really bad news, because they're not equipped for it, and they're not used to that exposure within our world, and it can create a lot of panic and unnecessary worry for them. Whereas actually, the people highest up in our business, they need to be exposed to that because it will affect how they're moving through their kind of day to day and their planning. But they have to be able to take it in their stride as well.
Brilliant. And as you shared that, live in the room, a bunch of questions came through. So I'd love to take some time now and just dig into this concepts of just business up and down, concept of just how you stay emotionally like this, and a whole bunch of stuff around that. So yeah, I guess just to say up front, this is a conversation about how leaders handle emotional kind of changes. Everyone is different. So I'm just to say up front now, there's a really obvious thing to say for people just tuning in, watching live or watching later. Different personalities, different emotional makeups, even just different trigger points emotionally. There's not going to be one size fits all answer here. So just to be, we're aware of that. But just as a context, I guess, to have the conversation, draw out some principles, things that you'd use or you'd communicate with some of your team. So here goes. I guess just standing back a little bit in a more general sense, just to talk about you and your life as a whole and staying emotionally. What things do you have in your life, just as David's, to stay emotionally balanced to help you show up to work just ready for anything?
Yeah, yeah. And so I've got two young kids as well, just to add that into the mix of our world. So it's very different 5 or 6 years ago how I'd keep my balance versus now. But there's a few key things. So I have almost non-negotiables in my world. One of those is exercise. So I carve out a minimum of 1 hour a week, so one session with a PT I see locally, and that's kind of locked in almost regardless of whatever's happening, because that is time for me that I know is boxed off, and I can just focus on me, because it's a cliche, but the better you look after yourself, the better you can serve people around you. So I think exercise is a fundamental pillar. Socializing. So me and my wife are very different. We get our energy from different things. I need to see people to get my energy. So if I have a couple of days without anything social in the calendar, I will consciously call anyone up in my phone book and say, hey, I need to go out. Do you want to go to the driving range or for a walk or for coffee or whatever it is? Because for me, that's where I get a lot of my energy. And then the third thing, and this comes back to kind of knowing yourself, and you alluded to a point a minute ago around everyone's different in their makeup. And a very strange thing for me is watching football manages to switch off any of my brain thinking about anything else. If where possible, again, kids, family life permitting, I'll watch a bit of football because I know my brain will just totally switch off and kind of I'll be engrossed in that game. And for other people, it can be books, it can be meditation, it can be cinema, all different things. But mine is watching football.
Brilliant. Just to pull on a couple of those threads, what happens just in a fortnight if you didn't do those first two emotional pillars? Like if you didn't go and exercise and if you didn't see people, how does that affect you at work?
Yeah, so I guess at work I'm generally quite middling. So it doesn't. I try not to let it affect me at work because I feel that I almost have a responsibility to act in a certain way and to show up in a certain way.
Yeah.
But it will affect me on the flip side. I'll be a bit more grumpy. I may not be as positive or engaging. So I try really hard to keep it within that line. But it can absolutely make me a little bit grumpy and a little bit more less willing.
I love the fact that you have even put it in the category of non-negotiable. Like for David to turn up to work, not grumpy, I just need to have these things in every week, and it just helps you be present. It's brilliant. Are there things that you actually avoid just to protect yourself emotionally? So obviously you're avoiding not exercising and not seeing people. Are there other things you just think, no, I'm not going to do that. It just affects me emotionally at work?
Yeah, I think being aware of yourself. So for me, sleep is really important. And again, I know there's lots of kind of buzzwords around sleep and getting the right amount of sleep, etc. at the moment. But if I have a go out till 2 a.m. in the morning, get up at 4 a.m. or whatever it is, I really have to make sure I'm getting the right amount of sleep because if I don't do that, then it will really affect.
Yeah, no, that we like to think we're superheroes,
Yeah,
but yeah,
maybe 20 years ago I could have got away with it, but
yeah,
not so
no, that's
much
fair
now.
enough. You've talked a little bit there about just self-learning and knowing yourself. How intentional have you been at that, just over the years, in terms of just understanding yourself better, understanding your particular emotional makeup? Has that just been by accident? Yeah, how do you journey that?
Yeah, so I'll caveat this, right? Is I set the business up when I was 19, and so I'd had one.
19.
Yeah,
Fair
I know.
play, man. Good job.
Well, so I had one job, when I was 18 for about a year. So I guess my corporate experience, my professional experience is only what I know of it. So I've learned a lot of things by mistake. A mistake can be reacting in the wrong way or letting things affect you in the wrong way. So I've had the luxury of the University of Business for 19 years. So I've learned from that a lot. So that's been something that's been really important. But then flip side of that is I'm really keen to understand our team and how they operate. And for me to do that, it's only fair that I also kind of hold the mirror up on myself and understand what makes me tick and what makes me not tick and gives me energy, etc. So I'm really conscious about how we learn more about ourselves and how we do things that, where possible, give us the most energy. Because there's no point in having a team of people, be that in outside of work or inside of work, where you are drained of energy from what you're doing. It's really important that whatever you are doing is giving you as much energy as possible.
Great. It sounds like, even in terms of like moving just from David to now David leading a team, you're really conscious of what energizes your team and what drains them.
Yeah, I think it's again, it's not always possible. That's the hard reality of business and work. So sometimes the team will be doing things that are draining them, and that's really tough. But I think if you at least acknowledge it, and you can try and put in things along the way that will kind of make up for it, if that makes sense. So just to be aware of it, then you know that you can kind of stop it at the quickest possible moment.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Well, let's move into the workplace. You've had a crazy 3 years, just lots and lots of growth and expansion, and as it sounds like, lots has happened over the last 19 years, or however. No, sorry, since you've been 19. Um, let's get ourselves into this scenario then. You're having to grapple with some major business decisions. You're on a real low on the curve. It's really affecting you emotionally, or potentially is. Just any wisdom tips here. How do you keep your head in those decision-making rooms? Like, firstly, when it isn't, in front of the whole team, it's just you and the other partner or director or whoever. How do you manage to keep your head in that place when conversation is particularly emotionally taxing?
Yeah, I think there's two things that they may sound a bit in the kind of wishy-washy or the cheesy world, but two things that I really hold on to. And one is there's a small saying that this too shall pass, and it's really powerful for me, because when you are going through the waves where you think everything's amazing and you've nailed it, it's a reminder that actually not to get too ahead of yourself, not to move into an arrogant space, etc., because you're going to go back through a dip at some point, and they vary in different styles. But also, when you're going through a dip, knowing that is not forever. So it's saying, okay, cool, look, it is what it is right now. We've got this problem in front of us, or this challenge in front of us. We need to overcome it. But once we've overcome it, then we'll be on the other side of it, and we can move past it. This isn't a mode of forever. And then the other one is a slightly longer explanation. So to cut me off, Simon, if I'm going on too much.
No, it's fine. You go.
Okay, great. So there's a Chinese proverb which is, and I'll try and remember it as accurately as possible. There's a farmer, and one day his horse bolts and loses it. And everyone from the village comes and says, "Oh, I'm really sorry, you've lost your horse." And he says, "Yeah, maybe." And then the next day, 3 kind of wild horses appear at his farm, and everyone's like, "Oh, congratulations, you've got 3 horses, you only had 1, this is amazing." And he said, "Well, maybe." And then the day after, his son goes out and rides on one of these wild horses, and it bucks, son falls off and breaks his leg. So all the community come around and say, "Look, oh my goodness, this is terrible. I'm really sorry for your son." And he said, "Yeah, it is what it is." And then the day after, the army come around and they're drafting teenagers, right? But they can't take his son because he's broken his leg. And the meaning kind of behind it is, you never really know if something is a good or a bad thing until you look back in retrospect. So we try and make the best decisions possible, but sometimes stuff that's really bad or really tough or may feel really painful, it may actually, because there's a higher purpose, a better outcome, but it's part of our journey, and we can't always control that. So those two things really pull me in.
What an incredible mindset. Both halves of what you've said. The first one I actually typed in the chat. This too shall pass. It's like a mindset of, chronologically, even if this is a really bad dip, we'll come out of it. We just will. And I guess that fights against an emotion, and you learn this. Your feelings sometimes lie to you, like, this is awful and it's going to be awful forever. This is what you feel, but it sounds like you're quite intentional at saying, no, it's not going to be forever. It feels like it's awful, but it won't. It will pass. But yeah, what you've just said then around the Chinese proverb, that's an incredible, optimism, I guess, of just seeing, just not being thrown by something of, like, that's the end. It's like, no, real good could come of this. We don't know what it is, but it might do.
Yeah, and we have to almost trust the process, and it doesn't always work out, right? Sometimes businesses fold or whatever, or teams there's all sorts of scenarios, but like I said, you never know really until you can look back with the rose-tinted glasses of hindsight to know if something was a good or a bad thing.
Wow, incredible mindset. So that's you in the heat of just a very difficult place in terms of what you're having to discuss, talk through with directors, with whoever, and just mindset that you have there. Let's just take you out of that situation in terms of just leading others. You're walking out of that room where you're now you've just been discussing difficult things, just straight into the day-to-day of business with somebody who wouldn't be appropriate for them to know what you've been talking about. How do you stay just present emotionally as a leader to your team? How do you not let this negatively affect you when you're around your other team members?
Yeah, so this again. This is easy to sit here and say, right? And it may sound like it's a simple magic box for everything, but you have to be able to compartmentalize. So when you leave the room, and we have it with our board meetings, right? We have quite a robust board, but much when you see a game of rugby, they're kind of it's a really fierce game. They're kind of really knocking each other about, but they at the end of it they shake hands, they move on. And so you have to be able to say, okay, cool, that's really tough, but unless you're actively working on it, I can't affect that right now. I need to deal with this box over here, so everything needs to stay over in that box. And there's practical things around distractions. So if you've moved from a really tricky environment into your next meeting or whatever it is, and you've got your WhatsApp or your inbox open while you're having that next session, something may come up. Hey, follow up, blah blah blah. Client's really unhappy. If you're reading that, looking at your phone as you're going, while you're trying to not think about it, it's never going to work. So you have to almost say, okay, cool. I'm not going to check my emails for this next session because otherwise I know it's going to just have a negative impact, and I'm going to be thinking about that the whole time. And then the other thing is, where possible, where there's that luxury, just take yourself out of the business. Go do a 15-minute walk. Go stand and look at the river or the road or whatever it is. Just take yourself out and almost just give yourself that opportunity to reset. And for some people, it may be calling their family, FaceTiming their kids, whatever it is. But just having that thing that for yourself is your reset, so that you think, okay, cool. Now I've got something that's kind of, I've got a positive, and I know other people do it in terms of if they've been through something really negative and they're going into their next session, they'll write all their positives down.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, woke up this morning, roof over my head, and that will help them reframe. So there's different practical tools, but yeah, just being able to box it off while you're not working on it is
Really practically, like just compartmentalizing is brilliant. Just not letting things in that are going to just trigger you emotionally. Just had a quick question on the chat, which I think is a brilliant question. How do you balance this like emotional resilience versus actually being just genuine and a present person?
yeah, that is a great question, because I think sometimes it may come across as disingenuous if I told Simon before, my wife jokes and calls me Tin Man, because we'll watch a movie or whatever. She's like, oh, what, how didn't you feel anything from that? And I think you just have to be genuine. You have to be consistent. And I think if you're consistent with the way you interact with your team, then they'll know there's a genuine thing. If they see you coming out of a session and you're in tears and you're whatever, and then you come out and you put on a kind of facade, it's really clear. So I think taking that time when you've had those difficult moments to reset yourself, you can put yourself back in the mode of you, and then they're getting the true version of you, as opposed to a kind of facade. And sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes that means saying, "Hey, I can't meet you in half an hour. I need to postpone this because I've got to deal with this." And dealing with it isn't always practically kind of going away and replying on an email. It's actually taking yourself out and resetting yourself.
Really good. There's so many threads to pull on. Just to say, if there are more questions on the chat, please do. Yeah, fire away. I've got some more questions I'd love to ask you as well. Yeah, I'm really struck by the compartmentalizing thing. I guess I'm thinking I'm not a tin man. So, like on Enneagram, I'm four. That's the artist. So, like, yeah, there's a lot of my background in music, songwriting. I feel things. There are not many films where I don't cry, and I just yeah, it is what it is. But that enables me to make music and melody that help people connect and feel. For me, I can compartmentalize mentally. I can switch off my Slack, my emails. But when I'm with the person in front of me, I'll have all the emotion like here. So what you've said about actually, if you just need to take 15 minutes, just go and do it. It's like, oh, brilliant. Actually, you can. And I guess if you're in the kind of leadership position you are, just to say, I'm really sorry, I just need to take 15 minutes, I think most people will understand. That's really helpful. There's another quick question on the chat, if you don't mind. How do we counter non-negotiable time against a diary or a task that doesn't fit in with the remaining time?
Yeah. So if I've understood you correctly, so if I've got a conflict in my calendar, right, with a non-negotiable, I have it as a fixed time in my diary each week, but I am flexible with when it falls in the week. if I'm even, for example, if I go on holiday, I will do a session before I go away or straight as soon as I get back. So I know that in that week I've filled that hour or that 2 hours or whatever it is. So sometimes it has to move, but it is always in that week, almost without a shadow of a doubt.
Nice. So you'll just move the block around, but it
Yeah.
will never get deleted.
Yeah.
That's
Because, you
great.
have stuff that comes up that's just out of your control for all intents and purposes.
Yeah. Okay, let's just get back into the workplace. The initial question was when you've walked out of that room, how do you lead others well? I guess to ask the other side of that, yeah, what's really unhelpful? What's really going to stop you doing that well? As you kind of hinted at in terms of just leaving the box open and keeping, is there anything else that you've actually found really unhelpful to be a present, emotionally engaged David with people around him?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think I mentioned about like not having your phone, right? It's not always as easy as said, but just not engaging with that previous conversation because it can just drag you back in. So I think that's a really key thing. And again, if I come back to the kind of practical tips, sometimes you just have to brain dump everything out, right? So sometimes you can write all the if you've had something bad that's happened, or something negative that's happened, you write down all the things that you think could amplify it, right? So you've lost a client, okay, we'll make staff redundant, we'll lose our business. You write them all down so they're out of your head. Because the other
Mm,
thing is you go into that meeting almost festering about it and thinking, what if, what if, what if? In that meeting, you can't control the what ifs. So
mm,
again, it's easier said than done, but you just have to know that you can't affect it at that time. So the best way is just to get it out of your vision. And even again, another example, if I can't fit in a walk, I'll try if I can make my next meeting a walk and talk. So I'll almost say, look, I can't move that next meeting, but I really need some mental clarity. So I'll say to the next person, hey, let's go do our meeting as a walk and talk, because then it can get you almost what you need in terms of, I
yeah,
guess,
yeah,
refilling your cup.
yeah. I love that brain dump piece. It's like I can't do anything about it, but I can at least get it out of here, and I can come back to it later. If I've got to go straight into a thing, just get it out. It's like sometimes I'm out for a date with Anna, and it's too late to be thinking about X, Y, and Z. So just taking a moment, just write loads of stuff down, and it's at least out of your head. I know I'll get to that system. I know I'll get to that Notion board later. It's fine, but just while it's in your head, it's not helpful. Great. Please do fire away if there are any other questions just on the chat here. Um, so I guess another kind of flip other side of the coin. We've been talking about emotionally draining stuff at work and being present for your team. What about when seasons are we go through this at home life, just personally as well. So just a very emotionally draining season at home, for example, a big house move or a major sickness or just some really bad news just for your own family or community. How do you not carry these things into your leadership at work? I mean, obviously you can't help to some level, but how do you still just remain emotionally present and for your team without carrying unnecessarily stuff from home?
Yeah, the first thing I think is around work-life balance. So I think there's a misconception is a strong word, but a feeling that work-life balance is going to work at 9, finishing at 5, and then leaving work at work and then being at home and those things. I think it's actually different to that. I think work-life balance is understanding when you have to tip the scale in a different direction. So a prime example, if something, like you said, emotionally is going on at home, it may mean that you just need to carve a bit out of your work diary and say, okay, I just need to focus and almost fix this or deal with it so that I'm not bringing it into the office or so that I'm not then blur. Because again, it's you then come into the office a 50% version of yourself. So there's no point in assuming that being there for 100% of the time at 50% isn't really like a benefit to anyone. Being there at 75% of the time for 100% of yourself is much more beneficial. And I understand that comes from a privileged position, right, where I can flex my time, sometimes, not always, but I can flex my time in certain scenarios. And I've had it in the past, right, where we've had some. Everyone goes through really tough things, but we've had some really tough stuff, and I've just taken a day off work, which is normally like the opposite to what I want to do. So I just take a day and I will do all the things that I need to do in that day to box it off. And then the following thing is just about open communication. My wife, I've been with my wife since I was 16 or 17, right? So we've been together before the business, so she knows about the ebbs and flows of the business. But we're really open, or I'm really open, I guess, because I have the work commitment of, hey, look, I've done as much as I can now on this really tough thing at home. I need to go to work, and I almost can't deal with it while I'm at work. So let's pick it up, or let's finish it, or whatever it is. Again, just to have that understanding, because if we're not open, the risk is that you have, I don't know, you get updates hourly on something that's happening, whereas actually the updates are really not useful for you unless you've asked for them. So just having that open dialogue is really, really important.
So just so I understand that last piece, you're kind of saying, I've gone as far as I can right now. I actually need to be present at work now for the next 7 hours or however long.
Yeah.
Let's pick it up when I get back. Actually, having texts throughout the day, I can't respond to those. I'm not going to be able to help you or whatever the situation is, and actually probably isn't going to help you do your job either. Is that
Yeah,
what you're
and
saying?
again, yeah, it sounds really cold and a bit harsh, but actually, I think it's really helpful for people because, again, if my wife was, if we had an emergency and my wife was messaging me every hour with updates, for me that's really unhelpful because it keeps opening the box, and and if I can't control it, if there's and whatever's going on, if I can't control it, I know actually I need to get this bit done so that I can be 100% of myself at home again, as opposed to being half of myself at work and then going into the evening, still being on emails and then trying to deal with the situation. Yeah, so I think really clear communication with people who you're surrounded by.
Brilliant, David. It sounds like you're saying wherever you are, try and be there 100%. And if there is something difficult at home and you can't be there, that's fine. But when you need to, you'll take a day out. You'll
Yeah,
you'll do what you need to do, figure things out, be present. I was intrigued by that. You said sometimes I will take a day off and I will do what I need to do. I guess what is that? Are you just emotionally processing stuff? Yeah, is it just whatever the situation requires?
yeah. I guess it's whatever the situation requires. But for me, if we've been through a tough time, if there's whatever it is, I'll surround myself with people, and I think this goes for work and personal life. In the best, if we could dream it up, you surround yourself with people who want the best for you. So when you've got those times, you're saying, okay, cool, I'm taking myself out, and everyone's there almost not just purely to support you, right? Because it's a communal thing, but that that they want the best for you, so you can almost kind of you can lay everything on the line, as opposed to, and that applies to work as well, as opposed to going into environments where you think I've got to be guarded with this because I feel like they may try and poach something, or they don't quite want the best for me in a certain scenario. So I think that's a really important part of it.
Really good. Well, listen, we're just coming to the end. Let's just take a moment to, if there are any other questions. There's one question that got asked actually on the run up to this that got posted in. So I'm going to just type that into the chat just quickly. So I can read it out. Currently, we've gone through a CEO change which has caused the workload to increase. However, as the competition for leadership role increases, I don't want to seem overwhelmed. How do I handle this?
Yeah, that's a really difficult one because I think it's about the people around you. So if you can trust the team around you, and the CEO who you're kind of reporting into, being overwhelmed is a thing, and it happens to everyone, right? It happens to me. It happens to people on our team. Like, it happens across the business. And the more open we can be about it, the more vulnerable we can be, the better you'll get through it. So I don't think suffering in silence is beneficial to you, or to your team, or to your CEO. I think actually being vulnerable and saying, hey, look, I've got all of these things on my plate. I can only prioritize these 3, 4, whatever they're, one thing. Which one do you want me to prioritize? And if you want me to get through these things, we need some extra support. But I think just being open. And I think if you're in an environment where the only way is to kind of work 15-hour days to kind of prove that you should get that leadership role, then I'd controversially argue I don't know if it's the right environment.
Okay.
Just to be totally blunt.
Yeah, yeah,
I think, yeah, it's not a nurturing environment.
yeah. But also the questions, I don't want to seem overwhelmed. I guess another positive thing, depending on who the leader is, a younger leader who can actually say, do you know what, I'm slightly overwhelmed, I just need to prioritize the right thing. That's actually a sign of maturity. A leader who's just like, no, I'm fine, I'm all fine, I'm fine, I'm okay. Actually, you don't want to, yeah, it is helpful to be able to be honest and vulnerable. There's another quick question that came in the chat just a minute ago. Do you have a specific morning routine that to just help you get in the right headspace so you show up, you in the right place? Is it ready, Brett? Come on, what is
I
it?
wish. Yeah, like I said, so my again, refer to my wife a lot. She is not a morning person, so the morning gig is my gig.
Right.
So my morning starts at 100 miles an hour, making 4 or 5 different variants of breakfasts, all those types of things. But I do have the way the one bit of control I have is around the timing. So I always say, cool, at this time, so 7:30, I'm kind of gone, and that gives me the ability to then get ready, do my walk to work. If I can't walk to work, listen to music, podcast, wherever it is. But no, I don't have any great wisdom around morning routines and cold plunges, etc. But yeah, just
Yeah,
having
it's funny. I don't know about you. I'm also down to 3 kids. My life, my morning routine has changed in different seasons. So there's been things that I could do and that would have worked 5 years ago that just doesn't work at all now. I guess one of my best things is to try and not arrive to 9 a.m. like flustered, or if I am, at least build in the first sort of 15 minutes of my day. There's nothing too demanding. I can just help like emotionally recalibrate as I'm opening up Slack and emails and just where I can get there. But yeah, there's a question around that mindset, isn't it? To get in the right headspace. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of science and therapy around the cold water therapy. The plunging. You can see why a lot of people do it. It's like starting your day with that and what it does to your mindset. But yeah, not everyone is able to do that. Well, I just want to hold fire just for a minute. Are there any more questions in the chat? And there's a few people just tuning in and watching from different places. Do fire away. But if not, we will. I guess, Dave, any final comments from you? Just signing off. If you're talking to some young buck listening in, or a senior leader, a CEO, what would you want to say?
One thing I forgot to mention, it's gratitude. So I think it is incredibly important that we have a awareness of gratitude, right? And gratitude comes in lots of different phases for different people. And it's often, I say this to my kids all the time, it's really easy to focus on what you haven't got, and that will make you generally unhappy. Focusing on what you have got, you'll generally feel like an abundance. Because we do have a lot of things, right? We're very privileged for the world we live in. So I think I really focus on gratitude and everything I've got. And I've said it before lots of different times. So like, if the business went bust tomorrow, I'd be exceptionally grateful because I've got my kids, my family, everyone's healthy. Yes, I've got to go and find a job, etc. But I think always that helps you get through the tough things because you remember actually what's important.
Yeah. Wow. What cultivating gratitude. Focus that line you just said. Focusing on what you don't have will genuinely make you unhappy. Focusing on what you do have will make you happy. Well, that's a great tone to leave this on. Dave, thank you so much. Really appreciate just your honesty, vulnerability, the experience that you brought here. I'm sure it'd be helping many people. So thank you so much. And guys, anyone else watching, please stay tuned for some other little interviews on this sort of stuff. But yeah, from us, we'll say a big goodbye. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
Yes, thanks, John. Bye-bye.